it's easy to get caught up in internship. There are so many different forms of work experience all the way through. And an institution that's just purely focused on internship is actually missing out on helping prepare you for those internships, the best possible internship that you can get by scaffolding these other types of experiences throughout the pathway.
Hey everyone, my name is Will Geiger, co-founder of Scholarships 360, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours. In today's conversation, I'm sitting down with Dana Stephenson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Riipen, to talk all things jobs and internships. Welcome, Dana.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so we always like to kick these off with a question about kind of misconceptions and myth busting. And I'm curious from your perspective, Dana, what are some of the biggest myths that students might have about finding a job or internship?
That's a great question and super timely given where the job market is right now for entry level students. But I think number one, I would say one of the biggest myths out there is that you have to work for a big company with a big brand name to get the biggest opportunity when it comes to an internship. I'd say number two, that full time, 40 hours a week, in person is your only option, and therefore you have to wait to take a semester off to get a high quality, high impact internship. And then third, I think is most important, most relevant to our work, is that the learning in the classroom and the learning on the job needs to be separate, and those are two separate things. But I think in our world, we're super excited what we're seeing is just an enormous amount of flexibility throughout that entire continuum and the opportunity to get experiences throughout the education pathway in the classroom, flexible approaches, short-term, part-time, working for small businesses, opening up just a whole world of opportunity that wasn't available before.
Yeah, no, I really love that. And I think, on the first point, hits on advice that I feel like I'm always giving to students. That's not necessarily just about going to like the biggest, most brand name college, that it's
Yeah,
really, the like what you're doing with that experience, that matters. And there's many, many good opportunities. And then, on the last point, yeah, I think that's like a really, and we can dig into this a little bit later, but just I think it would be a really critical part of a student's college search is thinking about like how institutions are, also thinking about like weaving, workforce training, skilling into their curriculum.
totally. I think it's never been more important. Your education is extremely important. Finding something that motivates you and keeps you excited to finish and find your passion and find your purpose. But getting that experience, there's nothing that compares to taking what you're learning, applying it in a real world setting, solving real challenges with real organizations in your community and around the world that you're passionate about, and really being able to articulate how the skills that you've earned throughout your education pathway have been applied and have had a real impact on organizations. And you can see the impact of that work. Nothing's more important than coming into an interview.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just yeah, being able to communicate that in a relevant way. Take me a step back, Dana. I'm curious about how your own personal experiences as a student, you know, kind of influenced or informed like the vision of what is now Ripen.
Sure. Yeah. Um, so a little bit about my background. When I was in high school, it's a couple things. One, I was math is where I found an enormous amount of passion. I was really excited about physics and engineering, and really had this whole idea that I was going to go into engineering. Number two, I was extremely shy, like unbelievably shy, and my mom sort of pushed me early on to get a job. In high school, first worked as a camp counselor, then worked at Safeway as a cashier, and had several jobs throughout my high school pathway, which has started to break down some of these fears of getting out there and developing some of these human skills, durable skills, communication, collaboration that we think are employers are thinking are so important. I actually took a year off between high school and university, college, sort of to figure out my path. I was actually working construction, so very hands-on physical labor, playing football at the same time, and I actually broke my thumb. I bring this whole story up because I couldn't work construction anymore, couldn't play football anymore. My mom was getting sick of me, lying on the couch complaining about what am I going to do. And so she found this training and it was sales training. It was a 1 week paid sales training, and then you move into a full time job. And she said, just get out there and just do the training. Even if you quit at the end of it, just do the training. And the thought for me of going into sales was just was terrifying, being someone who was so shy. But I did it. I committed. I went there with my cast and everything, and thought, look, I'll just get the week of pay and then move on. But I learned more. I felt like I learned more in that 1 week of training. It's really fantastic training, really, focused on all the human skills, listening with empathy, critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, communication, reading body language, et cetera. I learned more in that first week that I felt like applied to my day to day, and it was transformational. It was very intensive. It was transformational. But it fully had this moment for me where I thought, well, I want to do something else. Maybe I want to go into business. And so again, I actually worked my whole way through university and college. Most people don't really know this, but in Canada, co-op, the Northeastern co-op model
Hmm.
is huge. We're like a co-op country. Riipen is originally a Canadian company. And in your third year, you have to start your co-ops, and you have to get 3 co-ops before you graduate. And if you miss a co-op, then you have to extend your graduation. So it's a big deal in the program that we were in, and really important to help give you the experience you need to graduate. We were shocked. My business partner and I both took similar pathways, both worked in high school, worked through college, took some time off, worked. And so when we got to third year, both of us had a long resume of experiences, had lots of different social capital that we had built over time. Had seen the impact of our work and sort of figured out how to articulate some of our skills. So getting that first internship, first co-op, wasn't as much of a challenge. Of course, we didn't face some of the barriers some of our peers faced. But we were shocked to find out how many of our peers in third year had no work experience, let alone relevant work experience, like not even cashier, barista. And that just shocked us. And so we started thinking to ourselves, well, maybe not everyone has the luxury or the desire to take the kind of pathway that we took. But everyone's got to find opportunities to get work experience throughout their education pathway, because those students who missed out on that first work experience really struggled to get the next one. They were sort of falling behind the rest of the cohort. And so we thought to ourselves, there's got to be a better way. How can we help students get experience earlier on throughout their education pathway in a more flexible approach that fits around other life commitments, that fits around other jobs, that fits around other um, intensive core study or extracurriculars, so that every student gets the experience that they deserve throughout their education pathway to land meaningful employment.
No, I appreciate that, and I was really nodding along when you just recounted being a shyer student. I very much same boat. My mom, when I was 14 and I could work, she made me, you're gonna get a job, maybe go on my bike and like don't come back, like essentially until you have a job, which was very scary
Exactly.
just to be like walking into like restaurants and businesses, just like, and this was like pre like, job listings on internet. But it was, great experience. I worked in a deli like throughout college. And I'm just like such a fan of I don't know. I think there's so much. It might not be like the fanciest like type of job, but I think there's so much that you can learn, and there's so like many great skills that you're demonstrating just by virtue of having, even a cashier job, where I was like a dishwasher and like worked the front counter making sandwiches. So sometimes it makes me sad when I see the stats, and in America anyway, where like the summer job is like a thing of the past, and students are just like doing a lot, many more like structured activities. Um, but yeah, I think I love just love hearing the entrepreneurial story too, and just like how those dots were connected.
Yeah, and so just to kind of, I think I couldn't agree with you more. It really, worries me, saddens me, and I feel like it really is a shame to see the summer job, the part time high school, and early first year, second year college job dwindling, because you're exactly right. I mean, the durable skills, the professionalism skills that you're developing, the time management, the listening, the grit of getting through these jobs that even are even though they're not the thing they're the most passionate about. These are building blocks. and they have a huge impact on folks later on. And I think it's just a missed opportunity when students miss out.
Yeah, and I think even like thinking about like the admissions process, and I was at one point a college counselor at like a expensive independent school in Connecticut, and you know in selective admissions, even you can stand out a lot more if there's not that many kids that are doing a construction job or like doing working as a counselor or working in a restaurant. They're oftentimes like doing like other like types of things that they think like look better on a resume, but you know, I think counterintuitively, these like other opportunities, not that you should just be doing them just for like selective college purposes, but they will just like help you stand out a bit more just because,
Mhm.
so many students are not taking part in them. Um, and yeah, I'm also I I'm curious thinking about your experience at university and in Canada, and like appreciate you bringing up Northeastern. Like they think the co-op model is for the U.S. like quite unique there. I know there's some other institutions that have that. Um, but from like a more philosophical standpoint, like what do you think the role of higher ed is in preparing students for this world of work? I feel like in a number of recent conversations, with folks on research universities, folks at liberal arts colleges. I think there is this like, you know, we this mentality that this is a concern, and our institution should have a role in it. But I'm curious from someone who's working outside of like traditional higher ed, how you think about
Totally.
that.
So, I think one of the other things that, first I'll say, um, one of the biggest challenges that we continue to see out there is this challenge where higher education leaders and educators will sort of point the finger at industry and say, industry has to do more. This isn't just this isn't, we're not meant to prepare students for their first job. We're meant to prepare students for lifelong learning, to find their purpose, to find their truth, and then and for a career of uncertainty and change, and be able to be prepared for that. And employers need to be ready to invest more on day one, and onboard and ramp up and train individuals. And then of course employers are sort of pointing the finger and saying, there's a huge skills gap. I can't,
Hmm.
I'm not ready to take these students on. There's too, there's more people out here in the workforce that are a better investment for us. And if you want us to bring more of your recent graduates on or students on, you got to better prepare them for the workforce. There's a skills gap here. There's an experience gap here, and it's widening. I think the biggest thing the biggest challenge that we find in that is that if we keep pointing fingers at each other, we're just going to go nowhere fast. We're
Hmm.
not solving this problem. And so um, when I think of the purpose of education, I don't think it's an either or. I think we can prepare students for their first job, and for lifelong learning, and to contribute, to be socially engaged citizens who can contribute to their communities and live fulfilling lives. And I think it's extremely important that in order to find your purpose and to be a socially engaged citizen, you have to be able to put food on the table for your family. So it really shouldn't be an either or. And I brought up that whole point of pointing fingers because what we're seeing on our platform and in our ecosystem is that employers really do want to invest. They actually
Hmm.
do want to be part of the education and training. They just want to get involved earlier. We've got over 50,000 employers on our platform. Our model really is about partnering with higher education institutions and finding ways to get these experiences embedded directly into the education pathway earlier on, either part of a course, embedded with a faculty member so they can fit around life commitments, it can fit around other intensive courses, extracurriculars, et cetera, or it can be delivered in a co-curricular capacity, but they're shorter, more flexible projects. And there is an abundance of employers who want to participate. And I think what we need to start thinking about in higher education, and obviously from the industry side as well, is that how do we get these employers invested alongside students' learning pathways so they can be part of that learning journey? So we can create a feedback loop back to the higher education institution to help them better understand how do we set these students up for success, how do we incorporate these kinds of experiences throughout their education pathway? How do we scaffold from lower intensity ones to higher intensity ones to ensure that they get the internships, to build more relationships with employers, to help the students build more social capital? And we can do all those things But if we keep it separate, where education prepares the students, then they throw them over the fence, then the employers take them from there, there's just going to continue to be a disconnect that keeps and a gap that just keeps widening and widening.
Yeah, I think in the US as well, just as like, looking at like tuition costs, ballooning debt, I think there's also like that model fuels a lot of skepticism from families where it's like not just this, like, I think for this generation, it's not just like sort of accepted dogma that like, yes, I must, go to college and that like this is just like 100% gonna be worth it. I think people are asking more questions about ROI. What does this like actually like mean in terms of a career, especially in a world where, in the beginning part of the conversation, the entry level jobs, like that's like there's a lot of question marks about like what those are going to look like, and AI and technology and automation. So yeah, could not agree more. Just having more collaboration, and I think I am heartened just in some conversations, and again it ranges, different types of schools. But I'm thinking of a few liberal arts colleges I recently talked to about just being really thoughtful about how you can incorporate like skilling and career readiness into your institution while still staying true to your liberal arts mission. And I think, I tend to agree that those things are not like incompatible with one another.
That's right. We actually do a quick sort of shout out. We have a partnership with the Council of Independent Colleges, and it's a consortium of 25 private, small liberal arts colleges, and really looking at how we can embed these project-based experiences into the liberal arts programming education pathway, while and really trying to solve that either or, making it moving it from an either or, making sure that the institution can still serve its mission, but also ensure that they're preparing students for the workforce, and preparing them to adapt in a world of uncertainty, where
Yes.
we don't know exactly where they're going to land and what the jobs are going to look like and what the skills are going to be needed. But we know that we need to prepare them to learn and unlearn and relearn and take what they're learning and apply it in a real world setting, and then be able to adapt as those jobs change and new jobs come about.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing from you with some of these partnerships is just the opportunity to sort of sample different types of projects and different types of work experiences, which I think can just be so challenging for students if you feel like I'm in college, like maybe I have like a couple of summers where I kind of have to put all my eggs in like two baskets or three baskets as far as an internship, and trying to figure out like what I want to do, which is quite daunting. I think it's hard enough sometimes
Hmm.
to like pick a major or focus, but I think that sometimes makes it seem like even, more impossible that you also have to like figure out your like life's calling in these 4 years. And I just like that you get more reps into trying different types of
Totally.
projects and things in like a little bit of like a lower stakes way.
That's right. And I think that's really important to mention, that what we've really found really sets students up for success. Actually, is a great way to ensure that an institution can sort of dip their toes in and start to grow with these types of experiences, as well as employers, is have different models. On the far end, you've got internships and co-ops, which are typically full time, 40 hours a week, quite intensive, on site, working with a manager, working within a team, which are excellent. They're like the gold standard. Um, and then on the other end, you've got these very short duration, 10, 15, 20 hour, almost simulated experiences. But then you've got everything in between. So we have everything from 10, 20 hour simulated experiences, which again, is very much like you described, low stakes, low intensity, get some reps in, try out different projects, may not have as much engagement with the employer. It's really
Hmm.
set up the employer to engage hundreds of students through these projects, if not thousands of students through these projects. But again, you're building up your portfolio, you're getting the reps in, you're starting to learn how these work. You are getting some feedback, and then you can move into more what we call managed internships. And so these are sort of facilitated. We partner with organizations to help manage these internships, to help manage these project-based experiences on their behalf. We've got coaches and mentors. We help structure the experience, so it's not a huge lift on the employer. So again, we can attract lots of employers who want to participate, and we can make sure that the students are supported. And then we do higher intensity, higher stakes projects where the students are often going to be formed into teams, By the way, they can be in teams with the other experiences as well, but they get formed into teams. They get matched to a company. Now it's one-on-one engagement. Now we're kind of taking a step back. The higher education institution is taking a step back. The students have to go in there. They have to actually be bold, and they have to go ask questions to the employer, really find out what the problem is, think critically, be creative, come back, come with a solution, propose that, collect feedback, realize that when they make mistakes here, it's not the end of the world. That's part of real life. That's part
Mhm.
of working in a business. Learn from those mistakes, learn from that feedback, come back, iterate, repropose solutions, really demonstrate that they're thinking critically, thinking creatively, they're problem solving, they're listening with empathy, and they're coming up with new solutions. And they're collecting that feedback and iterating over and over again. And that's really important, because if you just throw students into the internship, or you just throw students into the high intensity capstone project, um, then and the students haven't really built that muscle yet before. They haven't really built that confidence. They haven't really done the reps. Then there can be a whole bunch of risks with that. The employer might not have a good experience. The students might not have
Mm.
a good experience. The brand and the reputation of the entire institution is on the line, and those employers might not come back and say, "I'm not really hiring these students, and I'm not shouldn't tell 10 other companies not to hire these students." So it's really important that we start engaging with these lower intensity, lower stakes experiences where you can build the reps early on, again, as early as high school, and start to uh, scaffold that all the way up to these higher intensity ones. And once you've got a student who's done multiple types of experiences, slowly over time, built up that confidence, built up the skills, built up the, some of the social capital and experience, and then they go into these higher intensity ones. Landing that internship, landing that co-op, landing that full-time job just becomes a totally different equation compared to someone who's just gone through, got their transcript with their grades, and now is going out there and trying to get their first job.
Yeah, no, that yeah, I love the. I was thinking the entire as you're just walking through that, just like very like smart scaffolding of like making this, you know, mm, scaling it in a really like appropriate way for students, and just being cognizant of where they are in life. And cool, I did not quite
Right.
realize that high school students could take it, could get involved in this. Are you directly partnering with specific high schools or access organizations? How
So
does
I
that
should say,
work?
so we are early in the K-12 space. But there is an enormous amount of demand, which is
Mhm.
super exciting. And we have a number of partnerships that have launched, that have been super, that are, I should just mention, we do about 60,000, 70,000 experiences per year. Or in the last year, we've done about just over 300,000 since 2017. So get a sense of the scale there. Uh, we are in the low thousands in high school, but just an enormous amount of demand. One of our most exciting partnerships, I would say, in this space, with the National U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Um, they have set up sites across the country in different regions. And those become hubs. Typically, a chamber of commerce becomes a hub where their members will work with us to develop challenges. It's called EPIC, is the program, and they'll develop challenges, and then those challenges will be distributed to high school students within the region, and those high school students can come form teams, participate, compete in the challenges, get a chance to present to those companies, and build up their portfolios. So very place-based, location focused. We have a big partnership with Pearson Virtual Schools, so lots of
Cool.
stuff working into this area, opening it up for more high school students. We see a ton of potential. We are early in those days, but yeah, our goal is to meet the students where they are and get to them as early as possible, so that by the time they're at the end of our experience, at the end of their undergrad or master's program, we have a very high degree of confidence that they're going to go out there, they're going to have a really positive impact with these employers, because our platform depends on that. The better experience that employers have, the more experience that more employers are going to come back, and we're going to start to solve that supply and demand challenge that so many students are facing when it comes to traditional internships.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. One anecdote on our end, we were hiring some software engineer this summer and put it up on LinkedIn, and this was a paid opportunity at our office in New York, and I think in like 24 hours we had like I think it was like 1,000 or 1,500 or some huge number of applications. We had to turn that off just as like we're just like can't manage this, and it's that's just for a small team. It's a lot of work just to try to try to find someone.
Totally.
And I think that's like on one hand, it's like a positive that like, there's more transparency, more options for applying to jobs, but just like the lack of friction in some ways just like makes it like even messier to sort of like sort through everything. So sure, like there's a lot of HR departments that are saving a lot of time just finding like, best fit candidates.
Well, this is exactly right. So, the vision that we have for the world really aligns with this whole movement around skills-based hiring, which is employers in the future will make hires based off of skills rather than the what it says on your resume and what institution you attended, et cetera. But more so with our work, those skills actually get pulled out of the projects and the deliverables that you've done
Hmm.
with organizations, and they actually get validated and verified by employers. So this whole concept, which is super important, is that employers making better decisions on who to hire based off of a full portfolio of project-based experiences that a student has participated in, skills that have been extracted from those, and what employers have said about the students demonstrating those skills, both the technical skills and the more human, durable skills that AI can augment, but of course can't replace. So we're super excited about that. We already have a ton of examples of employers hiring based off of these portfolios. Students, our largest program, actually a national program in Canada, we do about 10,000 students a year through it. About 50% of our employers hire the student
Wow.
after they do the project. So huge success there. Do the project. We'll hire a student after participating in the program. The students also report that moving up to about 75% or just over 75% report getting one or more job offers. And the lift there from 50% to 75% is what we call indirect. So they didn't get a job directly with the company they did the project with, but they took their portfolio, they showed that project off to another employer, and they can confidently say it was the project that got their foot in the door to help them get that job.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I'm sure just like as the world of work is just changing so quickly, like you're just able to take feedback and learnings from employers and put that back into the product, into the learning experience. Whereas I know that's like always a challenge. Like higher education institutions are just like a bit slower moving, which I think there's positives of that. But I think one of the certainly one of the positives is not like trying to like adapt to a very, very quickly like changing world of work. And this is just like a great way to supplement that work on campus.
Well, I think this was important when we first came up with the idea, but it is increasingly more important in the world that we live in today with so much uncertainty, with things changing so rapidly. The you know we're huge fans of institutions who commit to investing in and supporting a well-designed, industry advisory board that is advising on curriculum design and trying to really spend a lot of energy and a lot of time adapting their curriculum, to the needs of industry. And I'm not just saying, oh, you need to now teach this technical skill because this is the new hot technical skill, but just really understanding from industry how things are changing in their world, and some of the how students are demonstrating the human skills, the ones that we know are going to be so critical as AI continues to impact the skills that are needed by industry and the workforce, disrupts the workforce. I think those are absolutely amazing investments and encourage more institutions to invest in them. But I think we all have seen the challenges that feedback loop is slow. Even
Hmm.
meeting once a quarter, or even meeting once a 6 months, which I don't think many even meet that regularly. It's challenging. Having to actually get that all the way down to the individual faculty members is a challenge. But if you bring real project-based experiences into your courses and then have students take what they're learning and immediately apply it in a real-world setting on these projects, you create an instant feedback loop.
Hmm.
Immediately the curriculum becomes relevant because you're working on real projects from real industry and you're getting real feedback in real time while still in the course. And then as an educator, an individual educator who's managing that program, you are getting that in aggregate. And so you're saying, okay, I'm sending my 60 students out or my 30 students out, and they're working with 30 students, and you've got six groups of five, and you've got six different employers who are providing six different pieces of feedback, and you're getting that in aggregate semester after semester every time you teach that course. That helps. That turns the industry advisory board into turbocharges it to help get the feedback back faster.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting, and I guess just the nature of like an employer is not going to be offering like a project that is not relevant. So you have that like built-in like alignment that there's going to be like, of course, it's going to be relevant just because they're not going to be spending their time working to solve a problem that does not exist.
That's right.
Fascinating. I know I was reading, Ripen scale, like, over, I think it was 272,000 learning experiences at like 700, institutions. Um, Curious, like zooming out, what are some of the bigger lessons you've learned about how students work, and just the best way to connect them to some of these learning and work experiences? I kind of caveat, like, just based on what we are just talking about. I know this is probably changing so quickly, and I know the answer it's probably different now than it would have been a few years ago. But just kind of curious, like right now, how you think about that.
Yeah, I think the way we designed our platform, and the way we designed our partnerships with academic institutions right from day dot, was really around flexibility. No one institution is the same. The learners who they serve are not the same. They all have different unique needs. The communities that they serve, the employers who are engaging with them, the industries that they're preparing students for, they're all unique. And so our philosophy from the beginning has really been around learn best practices, share best practices, cultivate a community of partners who are willing to share and create a community of practice, a community of action where best practices get disseminated throughout the entire ecosystem. It's really an ecosystem approach. We have an open, what we like to call an open, shared, collaborative ecosystem, where everyone can see other people's, any educator can see what other educators are teaching, how they're teaching it, what employers are participating, what the employer's feedback is on those experiences. And that becomes this, this model that where everyone can learn from each other, everyone can share templates, everyone can share experiences, everyone can see and have visibility into what's happening, and that just a rising tide raises all boats. But I think what's really important in that is that there's no one size fits all. There's just a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of configuration to make sure that we're meeting the unique needs of learners and where they are in their journey. But that said, there's a lot of best practices, and so more and more best practice continue to come up. I think, again, I won't say that these are hard rules, but I think what we've seen is creates the most successful experiences is one, having students work in teams.
Hmm.
That's what the real world is like. So rather than having students work individually and go off and do projects on their own, we have lots of programs that do that and are very successful. That sort of team developing, again, those human skills, those durable skills, the collaboration, the communication, conflict resolution, negotiation, of actually working in a team, doing peer-to-peer evaluations, collecting that feedback, reflecting on that feedback from your peers as well as the employers. That's what the real world is like. And so we really want to make sure that that's possible. Building in reflection, so having students reflect on the experience early on, throughout, at the end, reflect on the feedback that they're getting from employers, reflect on the feedback that they're getting from their peers, if you do have that built in. Um, and then, the part that I just think is the most important about these projects is it's important to have some structure around it, but you really are trying to put the students into this situation of forced ambiguity. There is no right answer. So many of our students. One of my biggest challenges with our education systems is that students sort of are going through this. I memorize, I regurgitate. There's this right answer. Where these programs put you into this situation where there is no right answer. You have to go and find out from the employer. You got to be bold, and you have to pitch an idea, and that idea might be totally wrong, and then you have to
Hmm.
collect feedback, and you have to iterate on that. And what we're really trying to do there is we're teaching students to be adaptable, teaching students to learn and unlearn and relearn things, and just be comfortable in these situations of uncertainty, which may come about and will continue to come about as the world continues to change faster and faster and faster. So those are the things I think that are most important. We really do appreciate programs that are cohort based, where students can also learn not just from their own group, but can learn from each other and learn from the other employers who are participating. Um, in fact, even better when the students get to present to employers and the other students get to see those presentations and get to hear the feedback from multiple different employers. That exposure, that chance to build social human connection, social capital, those things are all super valuable.
Yeah, no, and I love hitting on the dealing with ambiguity and just like not being focused on. I'm sure it's just helpful. It's not a context where you're going to be getting a grade or like a specific report card, and you feel like that is that that's a very that can be very charged for students. You know, just like focus on like that as the like outcome, which is just like not how life works,
Yeah,
and just not like I think there probably are some good skills for being a conscientious, attentive student and following directions. But I think just taken to the nth degree, that's sometimes does not make for the the best like intern or employee for an employer.
that's right. I think the only other thing I would really say here is the is that students like everyone respond to incentives, and so um, to your point, it may not be the grade that's the incentive in this case, but offering credit for these goes a long way for
Mm,
students. Making sure that especially removing barriers for those who might not be able to take has so many other life commitments or another job that they're holding down. But that would be a huge barrier to taking an experience like this. Having this built directly into the curriculum where it's for credit, where that's
yeah.
programmatically placed, and it's a mandatory course, where it's an optional four credit internship, or it's just encouraging more and more faculty members to do this as part of their courses. Offering that credit where it's not something additional goes a huge long way. Now, not to say that co-curricular isn't valuable and important too. I think our best institutions, our best partners would do co-curricular and curricular, and make sure that there's many different opportunities for students to participate, and build that ecosystem of employers who want to engage with your students and to collect more data and tell the stories of how these students are gaining the skills and having the impact on their community, and so that the students can tell those stories to land better jobs. All of that is really critical, but I would say the institutions that are doing this best and getting absolutely the best results are ensuring that they're finding ways to offer credit for this.
No, yeah, that's really, really appreciate that. And I'm a first generation student myself. I just like knew that that was on financial aid, and that was always a challenge where I was not able to do like unpaid opportunities over the summer, and just like would have absolutely loved this when I was in college. So I know as we're getting closer to time, Dana, I want to kind of like go through kind of three kind of quick questions to get your takes. So the first is, for so many of our high school seniors and college students who are using Scholarships 360, selecting a major is like
Mm,
a really big decision. I know so many students are thinking about how they can be workforce ready and make sure that their majors aligned to a job. So I'm curious, like, what advice you have for students who might be, agonizing over a major selection right now.
yeah, I think um, there's a tendency to try to collect as much data as collect as much data as possible, really dig in, really ask the experts in the room, and try to figure out where is demand outpacing supply, so and that will last for the next 3 to 4 years. That when I come out of my education pathway, boom, I'm in a really hot job market. And all the power to students and parents who want to do that. There's definitely a strategy there. The approach that I would take is what's most important is to what's most important is to find something that's going to motivate you. It's going to keep you excited. It's going to keep you passionate. It's going to make you want to show up every day and give it everything you can, and go the extra mile and engage with your peers and be fully committed and invested in the programming, and all the everything that goes alongside it. But but I think what's critical, and of course I'm biased, but what's absolutely critical is choosing programs where they're investing in work-based learning, where they're
Mhm.
investing in experiential learning, where they're investing in these high impact practices. And I would say the biggest mistake right now going into this era that we are going into, where there's so much uncertainty out there, is investing into a program where you're just going through and you're collecting your transcript and your grades and you're getting straight A's, and that's absolutely fantastic. And you've chosen based off of a big brand name institution, but then you have no experience. I think that's going to create that the experience gap is becoming an experience chasm. So choose the programs where you're going to be able to take what you're learning, you're motivated by that learning, and you're going to be able to apply it in other ways to gain real world work experience all the way through.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for students if you're like a senior right now who might be thinking about different, you're accepted in a few months to the different colleges on your list and just, doing a little bit of research in your homework on how like each school, like a program might be approached very differently at different institutions. And I think that's a great framework to walk through.
That's right, and I think it's easy to get caught up in, again, as we were talking about at the top of this call, internship, 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 internship. There are so many different forms of work experience all the way through, and an institution that's just purely focused on internship is actually missing out on helping prepare you for those internships, the best possible internship that you can get by scaffolding these other
Mhm.
types of experiences throughout the pathway.
No, absolutely. I know one thing I've seen in the news a lot is just this idea that entry level jobs are just like completely going away. Do you think is there truth to this? Do you think this is hyperbole? Yeah, what's
So
your take?
so I think it's easy to get caught up in the headlines, and certainly with AI, the larger companies are under a lot of pressure to demonstrate efficiency, productivity gains, and are doing large layoffs. We see it in the headlines over and over again. In the interest of demonstrating increased profits, there's a lot of pressure for them to show that they can do more with less. That's the whole promise of AI, right? What's really interesting, though, so in our world, for those who don't know, about 85% of the employers that we work with are small, medium, and in fact, even micro businesses.
Hmm.
And we work with a ton of businesses who are, over 85% of our employers are under 50 employees, under 20 employees, even under 10 employees. So what's exciting about these businesses is they want to leverage AI. They want to leverage new technology. They want to go through digital transformation. They are hungry, but they want to do more with more. They're not interested in doing more with less. No one wants to move from eight employees to 3 employees. They want to move from 8 to 25. They want to grow their organization. They want to become a larger organization with more employees. And so what I would encourage more young people, folks who are in high school, who are entering college, thinking about entering the workforce, is to actually develop a lot of this AI fluency, learn the new tools, and then go and look at the small and medium and even micro businesses in their community. Find platforms like Riipen, partner with institutions that are partnering with platforms like Riipen. But there is just a wealth. We might be literally looking at the biggest opportunity for small businesses that we've ever seen, where they can harness new technologies and young people who are learning these skills to solve some major challenges, help them grow. When previously they've been extremely, and they continue to be, resource constrained, these tools can help them achieve more with more.
No, I love that. And actually, that was I think you hit on my last question. Just advice for students, and I love the thinking about AI as an opportunity versus just kind of the very kind of doomer view. And I think the cool thing is like these like LLM products, or there's so much access to them in like US and Canada. And the like kind of amazing thing is if you don't know how to do something, the product can help you learn how to do it. We're one of those smaller organizations, so we're definitely like seeing a lot of opportunities there and encouraging our team to explore. But yeah, I think that's a really great note to end on. Well, thank you so much, Dana. This has been such a fascinating conversation. I was really just excited to talk to you as someone who has like a perspective from the like higher ed side, the student learner side, but then also the employer side. So I think you're the perfect person to kind of hash this out with. So thanks for joining.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for having me and really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, take care. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Office Hours with Will Geiger. If you're a student or parent, don't forget to check out app.scholarships360.org, where you can sign up for our free scholarship matching platform. For colleges, we've got solutions to make your work easier, which you can check out at connect.scholarships360.org. And one last thing, if you or someone you know would make a great guest on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me by email or on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks again for listening.